The scoreline said Portugal 2-1. The scoreline lied. Croatia had that game. They had it taken from them 4 separate times by a flag, and the one moment that decided this match had nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with tactics. It had everything to do with a single centimeter of hair. Stay with me because by the end of this, you will understand this match better than anyone who watched it. Here is what I need you to know right now. Croatia had 3 goals disallowed for offside tonight. 3. The aggregate margin across those calls? Inches. 1 was ruled out because a player's hair, not his foot, not his shoulder, his hair, made contact with a cross. That is not a football decision. That is a geometry decision, and it eliminated a nation. Keep that number in your mind. 3 disallowed goals. We are coming back to it. New to Titan Sport? Subscribe now. We do this for every single World Cup match. Pre-match, recap, and deep insights. This is the one you need. Now let's go. Here is the counterintuitive truth about why Portugal won this match. It was not Ronaldo. It was not Bruno Fernandes. It was not Roberto Martinez's tactical setup. Portugal won this match because Roberto Martinez had Gonçalo Ramos on his bench and was not afraid to use him in the 94th minute. That is a depth decision. That is a squad-building decision made months before kickoff in Toronto. The winning goal came from a man who had not started the game, heading in a cross from Rafael Leão in stoppage time. Portugal did not outplay Croatia. Portugal outlasted them. And the reason they could outlast them is that Martinez had genuine match winners waiting behind his starting 11. That is the real story underneath the scoreline. Now let us talk about Roberto Martinez and the single decision that defined his evening. 4 mass substitutions. In one moment, Nelson, Bernardo Silva, Gonçalo Ramos, and Fabio Silva all came on simultaneously. Fox Sports commentators were not sure they had ever seen that before. Martinez had watched Croatia grow into this game in the second half, watched his midfield lose the tempo battle against Kovacic and Modric, and rather than making incremental adjustments, he detonated his bench all at once. It was a gamble built on certainty that his depth was superior, and that fresh legs in a tight game would eventually find the moment. He was right. Ramos headed the winner. But here is the judgment. Martinez was fortunate he needed to use that depth at all. His starting setup was outworked for significant stretches of the second half. The 4-substitution masterstroke looks brilliant because it worked. Had Ramos missed that header, we would be asking very different questions about why Martinez allowed Croatia to dominate for 40 minutes before reacting. Actually, wait. Before I tell you who really controlled this match, you need to know one number that changes everything. Mateo Kovacic. 0 goals in his international career before tonight. 17 appearances, 0 goals. He hit the post in the second half with a driving run that could have been a World Cup classic. The ball just refused to bend the way it needed to. He forced a brilliant save from Diogo Costa. He was, by any honest assessment, the best player on the pitch. And yet when people discuss this game tomorrow, they will talk about Ronaldo's penalty and Ramos's header. Kovacic ran this match for 40 minutes and left with nothing. That is the number that tells the real story. Gonçalo Ramos entered this game in the 80-something minute and won it in the 94th. But the player who actually decided this match was Rafael Leão, and not with the assist. Leão had been carrying Portugal's attacking threat from his left flank all evening, and it was his relentless work on that side, his willingness to keep running at Simic, keep demanding the ball, keep creating the overload, that eventually forced the moment. Fox Sports noted he hit the post with a wonderful strike. They called it a scare for Croatia. What it actually was is evidence that Leão had been consistently unlocking Croatia's defensive structure on that side for 60 minutes before the decisive cross arrived. The Ramos header was the final product of a process Leão had been building all night. When the ball came in deep and Ramos climbed above the center backs, it was because Leão had spent 90 minutes conditioning those defenders to track his run, not the movement behind them. That is the assist. But the setup for the assist is the entire second half of Rafael Leão's performance. Now Croatia. And the player whose night summarizes everything about this elimination, Ivan Perisic, 37 years old, Croatia's all-time top World Cup scorer with 7 goals after tonight. He opened the scoring with a finish that was clinical, composed, and completely characteristic of everything he has given this nation across 3 tournaments. Watch the goal again and look at what Fox Sports correctly identified: the overload at the far post, the perfectly timed first touch to create space, the absence of a challenge because Portugal's right side had been pulled completely out of position. That was not a lucky goal. That was a veteran reading a moment 20 seconds before it happened. And then Croatia had that lead taken away. And then Croatia equalized again. And then Croatia had that equalization taken away because Marko Pasalic's hair grazed the cross. Perisic played his final World Cup game. He scored. He did everything right. The tournament ended for him because of a VAR review measuring human hair in millimeters. There is no tactical lesson there. There is only the cruelty of the sport at its most precise and most pitiless. I am going to say something now that will make a lot of people angry. VAR did not just influence this game. VAR decided this game. And the question that nobody in mainstream media is willing to ask directly is this: at what point does geometric precision in offside calls stop serving the spirit of the game and start replacing football judgment with machine measurement? 4 goals disallowed in one match. One of them ruled out because hair, not a deliberate touch, not a controlled action, hair, contacted a ball. The Fox Sports commentary team themselves called it complicated. They said he does not play it intentionally. The rule does not care about intent. The rule cares about contact. And if we are now eliminating nations from World Cups based on involuntary contact from a player's hair, then we need to have an honest conversation about whether the tool we built to remove injustice has created a different and colder kind of injustice entirely. Croatia did not lose this match. Croatia lost a measurement contest. Now, the tactical pattern that ran through this entire match and decided everything. Every time Croatia's midfield, specifically Kovacic and Modric, won the ball in transition and pushed the tempo, Portugal's double pivot was forced to drop, which compressed the space between their defensive line and their midfield, which created exactly the wide channels Croatia needed to build their attacks through Perisic on the left and Simic overlapping on the right. It happened repeatedly in the second half. It happened so consistently that Croatia scored from it, had further goals disallowed from it, and came within a post from Kovacic doing it entirely on his own. Portugal's high press worked in the first half because Croatia was cautious. The moment Zlatko Dalic gave his players permission to play directly and quickly in the second half, Portugal's entire defensive shape was under stress. Martinez saw it. That is why he made 4 substitutions simultaneously. The pattern was not stopped. It was interrupted by fresh legs and ultimately ended by a stoppage-time header before Croatia could exploit it one final time. Remember what I said at the very start? That the scoreline lied? Here is the full picture now. Portugal 2-1 Croatia. 3 Croatian goals disallowed. 1 ruled out by a strand of hair. Kovacic hitting the post. Perisic scoring and still losing. The actual balance of play in the second half belonging to a Croatian team whose average age of 30 years and 99 days made them supposedly the oldest and most vulnerable side still remaining at this tournament. That scoreline does not reflect the match. It reflects a sequence of VAR decisions that went one way, a bench that went one way, and 94 minutes of football in which Croatia were genuinely the better team for long stretches and were eliminated anyway. The scoreline said 2-1. The game said something far more complicated. Now, Spain, round of 16, July 6th, and based entirely on what this match revealed, here is the tactical blueprint that Luis de la Fuente needs to study tonight. Portugal's double pivot is vulnerable in transition when pressed with pace and directness. Croatia exposed it repeatedly, and they did it with a midfield averaging 37 years old. Spain's midfield is younger, faster, and more aggressive in the